Hello everyone, back out on the water in the Crawdad. I just launched at a new pond, and at first I'm going to go around kind of power fishing shallow. I've got a Texas rig on that rod there with I think it's a pack of slim craw, 3/8 ounce weight, 4/0 hook. I'm just flipping that Texas rig around, seeing if there's anybody home in that tree. And you know, with new lakes, generally I try shallow, and if that doesn't work, I switch to deep. There's a lot of good cover around, but there doesn't seem to be any fish home. Now this is a trout lake. I'm not even sure that there's bass in here. So we're just going to put in the work and see if we can find any. Sometimes it's kind of a slow process. I think I said on another video I have to try 3 or 4 ponds sometimes to find one good one. And we're putting in the work here. All of it looks great. Water's kind of stained, but I've seen some little bluegills swimming around. And I've seen a whole bunch of tadpoles, frogs. So there's plenty in here for bass to eat, if there's any bass in here. And so at first what I'm doing is just I'm looking at what I think are the best pieces of cover shallow, and I'm trying to pick them apart. Pitching that Texas rig in the outside of the tree branches, up in the nook of some branches, way up tight. And I just couldn't find anything going on. A little while later I ran into what I thought was bait on the surface, and it ended up being hundreds, maybe thousands of tadpoles. It's kind of a weird thing. I usually don't see that in the bass ponds that I normally fish, and I think that's because the bass would eat them. And I'm wondering, maybe there just aren't very many bass in here. Maybe they don't eat tadpoles, I don't know. But it was kind of strange. You can sort of see the dimples as I'm getting closer to them. I'm casting right in the middle of them, and I've got a weedless Ned rig on, a salamander by Savage Gear, weedless Ned salamander, and that's the closest thing I have to a tadpole on the boat. And I'm putting it right on top of those piles of tadpoles and letting it sink to the bottom to see if there's any bass underneath these big schools. I'm off of it's not really a major point, a little minor point on this trout pond. And these tadpoles, I'm getting up on them now, they're just stacked out here. I'm probably in about 15-20 feet of water at least, and the boat is now surrounded by tadpoles. I've never really seen anything like this before. Trying further out on the point, I'm not having any luck. A little bit shallower. Trying further out. And I'm just kind of looking around at all the tadpoles. They look like bullfrog tadpoles to me. We've had a lot of rain this year, and maybe it was just a banner year for bullfrogs. I don't really know. Last week, it's been really hot here. This is kind of the end of summer when this video was shot, and it was 90 plus degrees every day this week. Then we had a front come through and the temperatures cooled off a little. It's probably 80, 85 now. So, I mean, it's still hot out there. And these tadpoles are just kind of basking in the sun. I don't know really what else to call it. But I fished out here for quite quite a while trying to figure out some kind of, depth the fish were at, or I don't know, location. I cast it all around for a little while, and I couldn't come up with anything. And I feel like if there was fish underneath these schools of tadpoles, that I'd be able to pull out a few. And it just wasn't happening. It's pretty wild though. I've never seen anything like it. I went around the rest of the lake. I was throwing a frog. I was throwing that Texas rig. Came up on this rocky island. And yeah, it all looks good, except I couldn't find any fish at all here. I mean, other than the bait fish, other than tadpoles, I couldn't find them. And I don't know if that's because of the weather, or maybe something I wasn't doing that I should have been doing, or maybe all the fish are in 30 feet of water, or they're all suspended out in the middle. But I just wasn't having any luck, and a lot of it looked good. I mean, maybe in the spring the fish are up on that rocky, I don't know what to call it, hump, I guess. It's not really an island. Has some weeds on the outer parts of it. It's got kind of a long point that sticks out to my right. I tried over there too. And the fish just weren't having it. And in situations like this, after you try a bunch of different things and you're just not having any luck, the best thing to do is to pack up the boat and leave and go somewhere else and try another pond instead of beating your head against the wall. So that's what I'm doing here. I've pulled the boat, I've gone down the road about 10 miles, found another pond to launch at. I'm putting the motor, it's a Minn Kota trolling motor on my Crawdad. If you're not familiar, Crawdad's just like a little plastic John boat, flat bottom, and mine's 11 feet long and gray. You see a lot of them that are green. I've got a lithium battery that powers that Minn Kota electric motor, the trolling motor. Works pretty well, lasts a long time. Haven't had any issues with it. I'm trying to use that trolling motor to pull me off of the bank that the boat was stuck on, so that's why it was sputtering a little bit. And then I swing my legs over and I'm ready to go. Whew. Doesn't take too long until I run into some frog water. And what I'm doing here is I'm looking for pieces of wood or different weeds coming together or openings in the pads, some kind of target that's within the weeds. I know they kind of all look similar, but if you look closely, you'll see there's different parts of the weeds that maybe are more likely to hold a bass than others. And it could be almost anything that's different. So right there, I put it in a kind of a pocket. I have to stop and adjust the motor. Kind of walk that frog out. And then once I get through the best looking spots, I just reel it in and line up my next cast. Well, that worked. Now that last fish was in a hole in the pads next to some lily pad roots. So hard structure. And I tried like heck to duplicate that. You know, wood, stumps, bunch of different types of weeds close together. And boy, I was struggling for a while. And eventually I had to pick up some other rods. I mean, I have 6 rods with me, so can only do the same thing so many times and have it not work before I start thinking I really need to do something different. But it all looks so good that I ended up picking up that frog rod quite often. I tried tossing that Texas rig around a little bit, different baits, right up against the side of wood, into wood, and I just couldn't get him to go. You know, it's very calm right now, there's no wind, it's still pretty warm, and there's just not a lot going on. I can hear bluegill in the pads smacking bugs underneath the lily pads. So that's kind of a good sign. I know that there's fish here, I know that they're somewhat active. But the bass, man, were giving me a hard time today. I had to really work for every bite I got. And here I've picked up a Strike King Caffeine Shad Jr. just to see if I can pull any bass off the edge of the weeds instead of right in the weeds with a frog. I wasn't having much luck with that either. The only thing I could come up with were these little pickerel, which is not what I wanted. So we're going to send this guy on his way as soon as I get my hands on him. And get back to frog fishing. Now this looks a little better. This is some kind of a little inlet here. Maybe there's a stream coming in at the end of this pocket. I can't really tell how far back it goes. But it looks good. I mean, there should be a fish in here somewhere. Like I said, it's late summer. It's not quite fall yet. The fish aren't really pushing bait into the back of pockets. But it just looks so good. There should be a fish there. So I'm walking that frog now that I'm in open water. And that one liked it. I was being a little lazy sitting down. I should have been standing up. So generally if I see a fish eat the frog while I'm sitting down, I'll stand up so I have better leverage on the hook set. That's a Z-Man Leapfrogs walking frog. I really like it for fishing pads because the hooks are underneath some ridges in the side of the frog, and that really helps keep the bait from getting hung up in the weeds, in the lily pads. Alright, it's a little bit later now. Sun's getting a little lower. I thought that might help me. It's still pretty hot. I'm sitting down again. I really should be standing up when I'm fishing the frog. This leverage thing is really important, especially if you're sitting in a sit-inside kayak. You really need a softer frog, or to boil your frogs, or to set hard and up if you're in a kayak. Otherwise your hookup ratio is going to be kind of lousy. In a crawdad, I'm up a little higher. You know, I have leverage in my favor a little bit more. I'm still not as high up as if I was in a bass boat. My tin boat, you know, would sit, my feet would be, I don't know, a foot and a half higher. And so that makes everything just easier in terms of setting the hook, frog fishing. But my tin boat would have trouble getting back into some of these swamps right here that I'm fishing. I probably also whacked the motor on a few stumps in the process too. So that's why I'm in the crawdad today. I'm covering water, trying to find some active fish. And there's a fish that slurps that bait out of the lily pad, so I stand up so I get better leverage and stick them. Now, I don't always have the luxury of the fish giving me enough time to stand up, but in that case it worked out. Whenever I can set the hook standing up, you know, I'll take that chance, because the hookup ratio is much, much better. And it's all because of leverage and angles and all that stuff. High school physics coming back for you. That fish took it kind of deep, so I have to work on him a minute with some forceps to get that hook out, but he kicks off strong. There he is. Not bad, maybe 3 pounds or so. I don't think he's quite 4. And that was it for that pond. The next day I actually hit another pond. Same thing, I'm in between rain showers in this pond, and it's flat calm. I mean dead flat calm. And I caught a few little fish. I caught a couple on the Texas rig, I caught a couple on the Frog, I caught a couple on the fluke. But it was just tough, tough fishing. So that's the way it goes sometimes. You know, you have to hit a couple ponds to find some active fish. And if they're not active where you are, you know, it's time to pack up the boat, head to the next one. Try again another day or another weekend. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. I'll list all the gear I used in the video description, so if you want to do the same thing I did, you can go and do that. I'll tell you exactly what I was using. And I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!